Okay, welcome if you're joining me again to Inspired Creation. If you've been following along here, I just made some videos about meditation, how to do it, why it's important, stuff like that. I got into some of the experiences that I've had during meditations, and there's more of those that I'll talk about in another video actually. But I'm thinking that especially with some of the things that get talked about while I'm explaining some things in these videos, that I'm thinking that maybe we should now start getting into some of the topics, some of the teachings and understandings of them, so that we can make sure at least that we're kind of following some type of a path here, some type of a beginning to end type deal. And also, just in case you're not coming across these things in your seeking, also we're kind of staying on some same pages here, or at least following some of the same concepts, and make sure we know what I'm talking about. So the first one we're just going to start is a nice little short video here about like the one, number one, its meaning, like in numerology, and spiritual meaning to it and everything, because that's kind of where we're starting. So the one in like numerology and a lot of teachings and everything, it represents the source, the infinite source, which everything comes out of. We tend to picture this as God, and many names for that, and many different religions and teachings and etc. It doesn't really matter. It's really all talking about the same thing, which is what everything comes out of, the infinite source. And so this is represented in all kinds of diagrams and things of teachings that we're going to get into. And you'll see oftentimes points of things are numbered. And most often the one almost always represents the infinite source, God. Could also be, depending on what you're talking about, like a new beginning, or a new creation, right? The source coming into a new body, creating a new person, or a new cell which multiplies within that person, right? Any new thing, especially as a living. It's represented by this one infinite source coming in, right? Creating something, whatever it is. And so, nice and short, really, the one always represents that, the infinite source. And following the teaching of that, the infinite source is therefore within everything. And it stays within it. And so you'll find that this is part of the misteachings of some things, and we'll get more into that, especially in the next video, which is all about the duality, the illusion of duality, actually. So when we get there, you'll discover that this religion often does this on purpose and on accident. Religion, it comes from what a true, real thing, right, that has a lot of truth and correctness in it, but over time has been manipulated, changed, and very honestly, literally used in positive and negative ways, both ways, and some of it actually, whether intentional or not, and we'll get to that, has been to hold us back. And in the biggest way of doing that is separating God, the infinite source, from whatever this one new thing is. If it's a person, if it's an animal, if it's whatever it is, any living thing, earth, trees, anything. Separating or having the perspective of separating this new thing from the source that it came from automatically gives a misperception, a misunderstanding, a misbelief system which then goes into the rest of this, right? The rest of everything. Why? Because especially us as humans, right, and the way we work, uh, we run off of our belief systems, and we function based off of that, and we send out signals according to that and receive things according to that, and it just goes on. And so coming as close to you can to the source of the problem of that is right here in understanding the number one, the representation of the number one and what it is, which is the source of where everything comes from. And when it comes in, it doesn't get separated and disappear. It stays there in that thing, a part of it. That's why the teachings are a piece of God are within you, are within everyone, a piece of the infinite source. So therefore you are always connected to the infinite source. And so we all always have this ability to tap in to the infinite source, right? We're never separated from it. But the perception of that, the perception of God being something that's outside of you, the infinite source of creation is something that's outside of you, takes away your power. It takes away your ability. Living on that belief system, believe it or not, completely changes everything about you, the way you look at things, your level of consciousness and awareness, period, I think. And it all starts in this first step. One of the biggest realizations of who you truly are, what you truly are, where you really come from, and everything is coming right back to this connection of realizing that the infinite source is within you. A piece of that, a part of that is in you. And it all has to do with the way of everything works. And, once you understand who and what you are, that's how you can understand the teachings of things that help you get over all your anxieties, all your fears, all your worries, all your problems, all the things that we stress about and really mess ourselves up, work against ourselves with, that we think are real because of the way we perceive them. That it's all an illusion, and that's the big key. It's all in your perception and how you see it, and that's going to come out of your consciousness and your awareness, your understanding of the way things work versus the way you've been told that they work, in the lower vibrational system, right? Which those things do work in that system. They work for you and against you, whatever they work. But it's not the mode of living that we should be having and experiencing. And that's obvious in our distaste and our displeasure for it, right? We're not getting upset and angry about it for nothing. We're not being stressed out, to the point of all this negativity and etc. for no reason. And then we can start to see, especially once we learn about duality, how you can get over those things, and how you can, see the truth in them, the way of them, the reasons why they are how they are, and therefore have a greater perspective and understanding, which allows you to be more balanced and at peace, more center. This is part of your mastery, and this is what we're all working on. If you're discovering this knowledge, if you're waking up to this, if you're going through an ascension, you are working on mastering yourself, and there's principles to that to follow, because we're not the first people. I'm not the first person by far. You're not nobody. This has been going on for longer than we can document. Everything we can find has all this knowledge in it, so it goes back beyond that. And again, none of us none of us can claim ownership of this knowledge or anything like that, because we're discovering all this, we're connecting to all this, and it's the way of things. We're understanding the way things work. We aren't making them work the way we want them to work, or, in the same sense, in realizing who you are, what you are, harnessing your true power through, slaying your snakes, slaying your dragons, and completing your masteries, right? You can, and we do. We are creators. We are part of this infinite source, and so we do create our realities. But if you understand it, and if you have the level of perspective that gives you all the answers to it and allows you to have the balance and peace and harmony, then you can quite literally navigate your way, creating it as you go, the way you see fit, right? And it's not just for you, it's for all of us, right? You have to learn the concept of being the change that you want to see in the world, right? You're waking up and noticing and seeing all this negative, but hopefully you should be seeing a lot of this positive aspects too, and the answers and the reasons for things, right? And a giant part of the reason that you're being shown and allowed to see and allowed to wake up and raise your consciousness and your understanding, right? The goal really in the end is to get back to infinite source. That's what everything's doing, but you don't want to complete that right here in this moment, become a light being and disappear from this place. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, we'll get there, right? You don't want to do that right this second, and you couldn't if you wanted to, because this is a process. It takes time. But also, you're here and you have a job and a purpose and a reason to all of this. And so in that, you got to walk these steps. You got to take this path, and you got to continue to be in service. And I'll make another video down the road here about always being in service. So you and everyone who is allowed this, and we'll have different purposes and different reasons, but a really big one is for us to help the people around us grow, right? And this is why we're scattered all over the place. There's people waking up and going through this stuff all around the world, in every level of society, whether you want to call high class, low class, anything in between, whatever. We're scattered all over the place like this, so that we can help everybody, and we'll do that in multiple ways. Some just by living our lives and doing what we do and the way we do it, which is leading by example. People see the way we act, the way we think, the things we do, our levels of successes and failures, and how we deal with that, and the things that we try to teach and pass on to our children or other people who are close to us. Some of it is just that. You don't really have to get on such a deep level with people. You just got to walk around and just shine your light. And that is quite literally might be your purpose at the moment, right? And that's helping to adjust and change in a more easier way, especially for sleeping people to take. It's a good way to slowly raise the consciousness and awareness and the way people live of those who are around you. And in another way, you could be called to, be some big motivational speaker, some type of guru, any type of, spiritual or religious preacher or pastor or something like that. But if you're seeing it in a religion or something, like I said, you got to be really careful of that, because they're indoctrinated, really they're drilled into their head on what they believe by those who run the show above them. So, that can be a real biased place. Like, I don't suggest anybody solely get their information really from any one place, especially a religion. But it all just we're getting off topic here. So it all just comes down to like one of these, to me, a very first principle, which is just understanding what the number one, which I look even in the number line, is the first start, it's the first place, right? Technically zeros before that, but that'll be something else, right? You know, and so we'll kind of go down this line here. And so this first thing is understanding the one represents the one main source where everything comes from, comes out of, the consciousness, the awareness, the souls, what everything comes from. And that when that comes into something, into a being, into anything, it stays with it. It doesn't disappear. And now this being is without this connection to its source, right? You can think about it in the way of like when we physically have our expression of creating a being, right, which is an expression of God, right, creating another being. We have babies in the way that happens, right? And when it does, you know, this baby isn't now just this child, its own being, its own thing, right? It is, right? But it was made of these two sources, right? And so now if you go and break down things to a smaller level of this bit, like such as its blood, its DNA, etc., right? What do you see? You see that the sources that had to create it are gone, and they're disappeared now, and all that's left is just this being? No, you see the traces from the sources that created it. You see, you know, things from the parents, the father's DNA, the mother's DNA, right? And even in the physical manifestation of this thing, it even physically has characteristics that look like both of those things, right? Now, this is all in the same respect. You know, when you find something that works on the macro, it also works on the micro. All depends on your perspective and how you look at things. So we see metaphors for the way life and everything works all over the place. And it's real easy for anyone with who's looking at things from a high consciousness, really from just a point of balance, you know, is really going to easily be able to see how metaphors of everything in life can connect to everything else in life. So, you know, the way that genes and stuff and DNA passes down from a parent to a child is very, very good representation of how you are always connected to the infinite source. You are always connected to God. You are always a piece of God, you know, and then we'll get into how that being the case, you must function in the same ways that God must function, right? My mind is a source of divine, you know, that's escaping my mind right now, that saying, but it's really, really true expression. My mind is a source of divine expression, right, which is very true. It means what's in your consciousness, what you think about, what you believe, what you perceive, what you send out, it becomes a reality because we create our realities. And we'll get into trying to prove that to you. So keep this video short with just an understanding of what the one represents. And we're going to move on here and get to the next video. So thank you.